Yeah. Ha! Yeah, I'm so special, I'm so special, I'm so special, so special, so special. I'm like Ichigo, master in a red suit. This my Bankai form, I'm about to let loose. Better make your next move your best move. Straight out the gate, niggas gon' hate and try to test you. Watch who you with, who your mans, who you next to. If you take a hit with son assist like a nephew,
you can never check us. Homie, this a chess move. Wrote this on a little short bus, I'm so special. If Mav say get him, I'ma get him. Ain't no talking when I pull up. Park up, hop out, run down with my hood up. Now what the fuck are you hating for? Can't DFG get money anymore?
It's hot for trapper turn smack rapper. Only smack rapper that you know is smack rapper.
I want to go back to something that you said, Bobby, when you talked about Trump and your decision to endorse him. You said there were 3 important issues for you. And those issues were,
sickness,
war, censorship, and kids' health.
For women who are voting and they have important issues to them, reproductive rights, where do you stand on that? And where does Trump stand on that since you endorsed him? I know there's been a lot of conversations about, or a lot of changes made in his stance. So today, as we approach the election in the next less than 60 days, you know, where do you guys stand on reproductive rights and women's rights?
Yeah, and that's a really critical issue. Can I sort of make a comment on the argument that you had, which I think is a really legitimate argument, and I think everybody was saying things that were smart. And I think that it's very hard to look into somebody's head and say, you know, they are racist. And what does that mean? Does it mean they hate black people? Does it mean they want to keep black people down? And you know, what's going on in people's head? I think it's really hard to make that determination. You judge people by what they do, and President Trump has done certain things that I think would put doubt in the minds of black Americans that he is on their side. I think 2 of those things have not been mentioned. I think the most alarming one was the ad that he took out against the Central Park kids.
The exonerated,
right, saying they should be given.
They weren't exonerated at that time.
I was saying
that's what they're called, the exonerated five.
Yeah, the exonerated. I'm saying that they should be executed. And then the other one was that, you know, in the sort of deep history as a real estate guy working for his dad, they were definitely using racial criteria to judge who should get an apartment in their housing complexes. So I think that is something that legitimately black Americans can look at and say, that's a very bad sign for us. I think ultimately it's really what you said is right, that for me right now is that this election where that probably what is happening in his head and how he views the world is probably a little less important, because you really have to judge him against his opponent, because they're 2 people who are, you know, flawed like we all are.
Right.
And you have to say which one would lead this country, which one is going to have policies that are going to be best for black Americans, whatever they feel. And that is where I come down on this. And, you know, I think that Kamala has her own problems. Kamala had a very, very bad record on black Americans. She's, if you look at the way people are living in California now, I live in California. We have half the homeless people in the country in that state because of policies she's endorsed. San Francisco, which was to me the most beautiful city in this country, is now just a hellhole, a literal hellhole. You have 1 million people leaving the state every year. They've run out of U-Hauls to get people out. It has the worst education system in the country. It's 49th in terms of child outcomes. After the only state worse than them is Mississippi. And Kamala herself had this very sketchy record as Attorney General, where she defied, the Supreme Court of the United States declared that the prisons in California were overcrowded unconstitutionally, that the conditions there constituted cruel and unusual punishment, and ordered Kamala to release 5,000 prisoners, almost all of them black, accused of nonviolent drug offenses. She refused again and again and again, defied that order, saying publicly, we need them for fire suppression. Oh, we need them to go work on the fire lines, and we can't afford to release them from jail. So that's a kind of, I guess you could compare that to slavery, that, there are people who are unconstitutionally held, and she needs them because she needs them to work on work gangs. That's not a good thing. There's a video that came out this week that's gone absolutely viral. And it is the story of a woman named Sherry Peoples, this extraordinary black lady who is a healthcare worker. And Kamala Harris made a declaration that the state of California was losing one. You can look this up, Sherry Peoples, C-H-E-R-I, and then People. Her daughter had sickle cell anemia and was in the hospital. She was in the hospital for 60 days, and she missed 60 days of school. Kamala Harris implemented a policy. She found out that there was a lot of truancy in California and that the state was losing $1.8 billion a year in federal funds because of truancy. She said publicly, and you can look at this film, I want that money. So I'm going to do something that nobody else has done. I'm going to start putting parents in prison who have truant kids. This was the first person that she put in. She sent the police to Sherry Peoples' house. Sherry's daughter, who graduated from high school, despite losing she was in agony from sickle cell anemia. 60 days in the hospital. Because she was hospitalized, she didn't get to school. And she ended up graduating high school with a 3.8 GPA, so she was not slacking. But Kamala Harris sent police to her house and handcuffed the mother and jailed her. And she lost her job, she lost her home, and she had to live in hotels thereafter. And the police, when they arrested her, she said to them, you can see her on the tape, she said, are you really going to handcuff me? She was wearing her pajamas. She was dragged out of bed. She was handcuffed behind her back. The police said, if you want to complain to Kamala Harris. And they put her in prison. And, all these other mothers, many of them black, were arrested and put in jail. And, I think it indicates that she's not somebody who's looking at the human consequences of some of her policies, and specifically the consequences that harm black people. You can also give many examples of Trump pardoning people who were in jail, most of them black, because they were in jail for wrongly, as many black people in this country are wrongly in prison. You can find compassion on both sides, and you can find policies on both sides that are harmful to black people. And to me, I think one of those policies is reproductive rights. He's not as good on reproductive rights as Kamala. His position on reproductive rights is that the baby should be protected after it's viable, but that it should be decided by the states, that it should go back to the states. And what we've seen now that it's in the states is there's some bad results, like Texas, probably the worst. But even the red states, none of them are banning it altogether. They're making it more difficult, but none of them are banning it altogether. Most of them are deciding when viability is, when that baby would be viable outside of the womb, and they have different dates. Well, that's reproductive rights, but ultimately, I think the worst threat to African Americans in this country, one of them is the school to prison pipeline. But the much worse threat is their health. Is that, that Black Americans, after American Indians, are the fattest, most obese, most diabetic, and most plagued by chronic disease. And they're living in food deserts. It would be very, very difficult for anybody in this neighborhood to get healthy food. They're being systematically poisoned. And, we had the highest death rate in COVID, but Black Americans, after Indians, had the highest death rate in the world. Black Americans were dying during COVID at a rate of 3,000 per million population. In Haiti, which is the poorest country in the hemisphere, they were dying at 14 per million population because they're not being poisoned. And we need to end that, and the Democrats aren't going to do it.
So you believe
in terms
Trump
of, let me
is going
make
to
one
do
other point. In terms of the economy, which disproportionately impacts when the economy goes south, it disproportionately impacts Blacks. During the Trump years, we had a 7% inflation. Now we have 20%. The groceries have gone up. The gas has gone up. The housing costs, the mortgage rates have doubled in the last 3.5 years. The wages, which went up enormously, 135% during Trump. 135% during Trump have dropped. So wages are actually 2.2% lower since the Biden administration took office. So I think, if you want to look at who is going to do better for Black Americans in this country, that the evidence suggests that it's going to be President Trump. I'm going to be in the White House. And as you guys know, this has been one of my priorities my whole life. And I don't think you're going to get a repeat of 2016 to 2020. If you did, I would leave. I don't think that's the way that it's going to be. I think that, there's going to be people in there who for whom the condition of Black Americans is a priority and a lifetime priority for me. It's something I've been working on my entire life, that my family's been working on since the early 60s. And for me, I'm going to make that a priority to the extent that I can of this administration.
So I just want to ask you something, because you mentioned your family, and, I'm a huge admirer of what your family represents.
Thank you.
Has your decision to endorse Trump caused further strife within your family?
Yeah. My family is at the center of the Democratic Party.
Why you giving me mixed signals? Let's be honest, you want some dick in you. Or you don't. I don't know.
Baby, you got what I need. But you say I'm just
Nah.
You say I'm just
Fuck outta here.
Stop